and then multiply it by 4 exhausts. In fact, I think this might just be the most raucous road car I have ever driven. Now, before we go any further, I think we should probably stop and have a look at what's generating all that noise. The engine is the most powerful ever fitted to a production Ford road car. It's so powerful that Ford has decided to fix the bonnet in not 1, but 3 places. And there it is, in all its glory. 760 brake horsepower and 625 pounds-foot of torque. As you can see on here, it's produced at their Romeo engine plant on the niche line, and their modular V8s have had some pretty cool names over the years, sort of Terminator, Coyote. This is the Predator. Now, this is 5.2 litres or 315 cubic inches, but this is not just a supercharged version of the naturally aspirated Voodoo engine, which was in the GT350, because that had a flat plane crank and this has got a cross plane crank. That's a 2.65 litre Roots type supercharger. It takes 90 brake horsepower just to run that. Port fuel injection, it is a mighty, mighty thing. A couple of other things whilst we've got the bonnet up. I love this big magnesium brace that goes all the way across here, really architectural. This car has also got the handling pack on it, so we've got adjustable top mounts here. The handling pack also gives you the splitter wickers and the gurney flap on the rear wing. You can also spec your Shelby GT500 with a carbon fibre track pack, which would delete the rear seats, give you carbon fibre wheels, a carbon fibre splitter, a GT4 rear wing, and Cup 2 tyres instead of the standard Pilot Sport 4S rubber. Anyway, back to this car, which has the optional stripes on the outside and the technology pack with the B&O sound system on the inside. The full-fat electrically adjustable seats have also been replaced with some more fitting items. These manually adjustable Recaros, they really do feel more appropriate. I do like the Alcantara on the wheel as well. This car is sort of the automotive equivalent of the Hulk. For a start, I mean, it looks muscle-bound, the view out over this huge bulging bonnet. And then there's the paint, grabber lime. It actually looks a bit like a 1970s colour that Ford did called Le Mans Green. But it doesn't just look like the Hulk, it feels like the Hulk as well. That enormous engine feels every bit as potent as the numbers would suggest. This is definitely not a case of all mouth and no trousers. The nice thing, the sort of surprising thing, is actually how smooth this engine is. You really can rev it all the way out. The other big and really nice surprise is just how good this gearbox is. It's a Tremex 7-speed dual clutch gearbox, and it's so smooth. It's not just good for this car, it's a really, really good dual clutch transmission. It makes you feel really happy to actually exploit the performance of the engine. The whole car actually just feels more usable because the transmission is so quick but so smooth it doesn't unsettle the car at all. It's fantastic. I like these big paddles too, with the ribs on the back. Remind me of the ones in the Ford Raptor. We've got various modes here. I've kept the steering always in sport just to give that bit more connection. There are also 4 modes for the exhaust, which nominally go from quiet through normal and sport to track, but more accurately go from mildly bleeding eardrums to wake the dead. There are also 3 modes for the Magna Ride dampers, but on the road I'd advocate sticking to their softest normal setting, which already feels firm enough. To be fair, over the small bumps it's actually really good. It's got really good small bump sensitivity. It's just over the bigger hits where you notice that it's a big car that it's trying to control. It always feels like a big car, this though. It weighs 1900 kilos, it's 4.8 metres long, 2 metres wide, and it feels every bit of that. It doesn't shrink around you. I did actually drive this car around Goodwood a few weeks ago, and in full track mode there, it's surprisingly good. It's a car that around the track you notice the weight even more, obviously, but it's still got turning. It's not just pushing, and you can balance it. It's surprisingly smooth out the limit. It's not just sort of Larry trying to light up the tyres absolutely everywhere. good. It is quite a bumpy circuit, and you certainly notice those bumps. And because it's such a fast circuit as well, and this really is fast down the Lavant Straight, you become very aware of what it's trying to cope with.
And just in case you're wondering, yes, the track mode was too loud for the track. Oh, the irony. Anyway, that engine. Wow. Despite what you might think, it doesn't feel lazy in any way. Its sound also isn't dominated by the supercharger, like some cars.
It obviously doesn't rev to 8,500 like the GT350's engine, but 7,700 still feels like plenty, to be honest. Traction is actually really impressive as well. We know that this is obviously now a Mustang with independent rear suspension, and I remember from the GT350 just how much grip these performance Mustangs have. We've got a huge 305 section tyre at the front, 315 at the rear, and it means you've got an enormous amount of turning grip. For all that weight, it really does hustle. Thankfully, the big 420mm discs do a very good job of stopping it too. It's a really nice, firm pedal feel. In many ways, the GT350 is probably the purer car, more of the driver's car. You can get it with a manual gearbox for a start, but I actually think I prefer the character of this. I always found the GT350's naturally aspirated engine a little bit tricky, just because it really needed revving. It sort of almost didn't fit with the character you expect from a Mustang. This, with all its torque, is much more like it.
Now, I am aware that quite a few of the cars we review on Carfection are tantalisingly unavailable to those of you in the USA. Here's looking at you, GR Yaris. Well, this time the boot is on the other foot.
This car is not available in the UK. If you want it, you're going to have to import it, and it's going to cost an awful lot more than the $70,000 that this costs in the USA. This sort of feels like redressing the balance after producing an electric Mustang. This must be about the thirstiest as well as the loudest car I've ever driven.
Ford's own claimed combined fuel economy figure equates to 16.8 mpg. I didn't even see that.
The range on the Mackie is probably better than this, actually.
So there we are, loud and proud, one of the most muscular of muscle cars. And yet I almost hesitate to brand it as a muscle car, because that might bring with it the impression that it will only make sense on a long, straight road. And that's definitely not the case.
These GT Mustangs, you underestimate them at your peril. They are much more sophisticated than I'm sure a lot of people think.